Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Tiny Lego Guns channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on the mini Lego pump action shotgun. We'll start with disassembly. This piece is not important, by the way, as it just holds up the gun for display. We'll remove the main rubber band, and that powers the firing pin. Now we'll remove the trigger and sear rubber bands, and to do that we'll use a tool. This is a plastic hooked tool, plastic so that it doesn't cut up the rubber, and a hook so that it won't stretch out the rubber too much when you are removing or installing the rubber band. And that went flying. So now all of the rubber bands are removed, no parts are under tension, so we can disassemble it without pieces flying everywhere. So we'll start off with removing the trigger, the trigger pin, the stock, the sear, the firing pin block, the rear end of the receiver, the rest of the firing pin, the pump, and we are left with the front end of the receiver. So now we have 5 parts that we can assemble individually, and then once we have these 5 parts, we can put them together, and then we have the whole gun. And of course we have the other things like the pump and the trigger pin, but I guess that you don't need assembly for them because they're just one piece. Here are the parts required to assemble the trigger. I'm not going to tell you what the parts' names are because I don't know what the parts' names are. So I'm just going to show you me assembling it. Pretty simple. Trigger done. And of course you have the trigger pin. And this is a loose peg, so make sure it can easily move around while it's in one of these peg holes. Here are the parts required to assemble the stock, and I'll just show you how to assemble them, because there really isn't much to be said. We'll put that aside, assemble the butt plate. Cheek riser, and we'll put that into the rest of the stock. And there's your stock. You don't have to use this particular design. In fact, all you really need is a connection point here for an axle and a connection point on the side for a peg for the trigger pin. That's pretty much all you need. So you could have a really short stock. In fact, not really considered a stock, but whatever. Here are the parts required to assemble the sear. Pretty simple. Not a whole lot of parts, like the trigger. Oh, when you put this piece on, you want to make sure that the circle is on the bottom. That way it will definitely hold on to the sear and trigger rubber band. Here are the parts required to assemble the firing pin. This is 4 studs long, and this is 6 studs long. Yet again, pretty simple. And with the firing pin block, you can leave this out because you're going to need to remove it anyways when you're putting the whole thing together, so you can leave these two separate for now. Here are the parts required to assemble the receiver. This piece is 4 studs long, this piece is 7 studs long. Pretty simple, straightforward, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. You heard enough. Oops. You want to make sure the axle goes in there. Alright. And we'll leave these two portions of the receiver separate so that we can assemble them, because we're going to remove them anyways. Here are all the parts ready for assembly, but first I'm going to swap out a few parts. So we have a slightly shortened receiver, a slightly shortened firing pin, and a vertical grip pump. Now let's start assembly, which is the opposite of disassembly. And you've seen that already, but I'm going to show you anyways. I'm not going to show you the tutorial on the new parts either, because they're pretty simple to make. Now, make sure that your trigger is underneath your sear, and just hold it like that, pressing against the trigger, and get your rubber band around your trigger and sear rubber bands. Don't mix up your rubber bands. Then you want to wrap them around this little thing right here, part. I don't really know what it's called. Then of course you can use your hook tool to prevent any breakages. And there you go. When you squeeze your trigger, it should move out of the way. If it doesn't, make sure that you're wrapping it correctly. And then we can wrap around the main rubber band, around the rear of the firing pin, or the firing pin block, and the front of the receiver. So now it should function. But this is set up for a left-handed shooter. So you can swap out these parts and you can make it right-handed. So to do that, you want to remove the rubber band that powers the firing pin, then the trigger and sear rubber band, using your tool if you have it. Remove your trigger and your trigger pin. Remove the stock. And with the sear, you mirror it and then put it back in. There you go. Then you put back in your stock the same way. I'll turn around the gun. Then you put in your trigger pin on this side. Then you install the trigger. Same thing, still under the sear. And you just put in the rubber band the same way, except in reverse. Which I'm not used to doing, but I can still manage, I think. We use our tool, pull that up. There we go. Just put in your main rubber bands any other way. Or the same way, whatever. And there you go, now it's set up for right-handed shooters. Works the same. I'm not used to it though, because I am mainly left-handed when it comes to shooting. But there you go, there's the tutorial on the mini Lego pump action shotgun. Hope you enjoyed.